Stories of Change, co-hosted by the Geneva Challenge, the Young Activists Summit, and the Kofi Annan Foundation. We are very much delighted to have you here in the event. My name is Claudine Nduma, and I think same with some of you, I also joined the Geneva Challenge and was actually one of the finalists of the Geneva Challenge 2022, and I'm happy to be the moderator for today's event. So before I introduce the theme of the event as well as the panelists, I would just like to inform everyone that this event is being recorded and will be added to the YouTube channel of Geneva Graduate Institute. So if you do not feel comfortable having your image in the recording, feel free to turn off your camera. Okay, I guess, Clara, we can start the recording. Okay. So also we have Baylen saying hi from South Africa. All right, so I think it's already recording. So to share the theme of the event, okay, so today there are 1.8 billion young people, the largest generation in history. Nonetheless, youth face significant barriers to empowerment. They experience 3 times the unemployment rate of older adults, and 20% are not in employment, education, or training. Young people are also among the most vulnerable to climate change impacts, such as natural disasters, water and food scarcity, and even poverty. Despite these challenges, they are often excluded from decision-making processes, and young activists face hurdles like limited resources and funding and political resistance. Today, we will hear from these 3 outstanding young changemakers who, in spite of these barriers, have successfully driven change in their home countries. Let me briefly introduce to you our panelists. So I guess you can see also their videos. So to start, we have Nisreen El Saim, is a Sudanese climate activist and the general coordinator of the Youth and Environment Society. She is also the co-founder of Sudan Youth Organizations on Climate Change and the former chair of the UN Secretary General's Youth Advisory Group on Climate Change. In 2023, she participated in the Young Activists Summit. So I guess, Nisreen, you can say hi to our audience. Hi, Nisreen.
Hi guys, glad to be here with you today. Looking forward for the discussion.
Perfect. Thank you, Nisreen. Next, we also have Toha Shamsu Isa, is the founder and executive director of African Students for Interfaith Tolerance and the regional coordinator for the United Network of Young Peace Builders. He was also part of the 2023 Kofi Annan Changemaker Program cohort. Hi, Isa. Are you there? Okay. Maybe briefly say hi. Okay. Next, we also have Junbert Pabon, who has created the Holistic Development Program that helps to rehabilitate children in conflict with the law, implemented by the World Organization of the Scout Movement. For his work, the World Organization of the Scout Movement awarded him the Messenger of Peace Hero Award in 2018. In 2021, Junbert also participated in the Kofi Annan Foundation Changemaker Program. Maybe Junbert, can you briefly say hi?
Hi. Thank you, Claude.
There.
Hi, everyone. Looking forward for
Hi,
the discussion.
hi, Junbert. And we also have Isa. Hi, Isa. Okay, I think he's having some connection issues, but we'll have him ready for the discussion. Okay, perfect. So later on, we'll get to know more our panelists. So they'll be given chance to introduce their advocacies and let us know more about themselves. But for today's program, so we'll be having a 30-minute moderated discussion with the panelists, followed by a 40-minute Q&A session with the audience. So this is the perfect time for the audience to ask your questions to our panelists. Should you have any questions, please write them in the Q&A box and we will ask them after the moderated panel discussion. So as same as what you did by commenting where you're coming from, you can use the chat box or Q&A box to share your questions and we'll have that asked after the moderated panel discussions. Okay, so that's, I think, the introductions. I guess we have our panelists here. So, hi everyone, how are you feeling today?
Excited, Claude.
Excited? I am also excited to listen to your stories, and I think we'll wait for Isa, but I guess we can start by, of course, getting to know the panelists. Maybe you can share about your advocacy and what inspired you to start your journey as an activist. I guess we can start with Nisreen, if you're ready, Nisreen.
Yes, sure. I just also want to highlight that I was a Kofi Annan Next Gen Democracy finalist this year, 2024.
Wow,
And
congratulations.
thank you very much. Well, I think I get to ask this question a lot. A lot of people ask me, what is my inspiration? And I think I didn't have a specific inspiration, but there is always a drive for a better tomorrow and a better future for me and for the people around me. And I think also big part or my turning point, let's say, is I was a freshman at the university studying physics, because I always believe that science can change the world to of course to the best. But unfortunately, a very violent situation happened in the university by the regime in Sudan, and as a result, one student was killed. And for me, I was thinking, yes, maybe science and scientists like the one I was coming can change the world, but if we don't have them as policymakers and decision makers, then their science will probably stay in books. And this is why I started searching how to link science with policy making or decision making, and I found something called science diplomacy. I think that this is what was my turning point. And then reading more and more about science diplomacy, I discovered also about climate change, because it was one of the biggest topic when you talk about science diplomacy. And reading more about climate change made me connect very easily with what's happening on the ground and for the Sudanese people. And then I went and volunteered in one of the local organizations, and this was in 2012, and I am stuck since then doing climate activism. Yeah, I just hope that we reach a solution for this problem, so we can move to other types of inequality which the world is full of. But I think now climate change is the biggest threat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nisreen. I think it's what you said, like the drive that started your journey as an activist is really inspiring. I think we have Isa. Isa, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear
Oh,
me?
yes, yes, you're audible. So we basically
Wonderful.
we want to get to know you more. Maybe you can talk about your advocacy and what has inspired your journey to become an activist.
Wonderful. If you can hear me, I don't know what happened, but this last few minutes, my network has started to mess up. But we'll get through this together. First of all, let me say a very big thank you to the Geneva Graduate Institute, the Geneva Challenge, the Kofi Annan Foundation, and all the partners who have put together this event today. I describe myself as a very curious young person with passion to bridge bridges across our different diversities, whether it is perceived or whether it is real. And my name is Isato Hashamso, and I was born in rural northern Ghana. And I became the founder and executive director of a youth-led peace-building organization called ASFED. But my inspiration into activism goes far beyond the creation of this initiative or this organization. And I recall that my first advocacy was a social media post that I made about unfair distribution of social services to people. And that gave me a lot of good trouble. I say good trouble because the trouble that came with that social media post really strengthened me and built me into taking up bigger advocacy steps. And, growing up, you people are impacted by different stakeholders. So I was very mindful of that. And that also because of the society that we lived in at the time. But fast forward, my current initiative was inspired by external events. The unfortunate terrorist attacks that occurred in Sri Lanka and New Zealand were the turning point for me as a young person. At the time, I was in college and I saw videos of this young man, Harrison, went to the mosque. Whilst people were praying, he was shooting them down and all of that, the horror that came with that. And some few weeks after that, we saw the massive attacks that happened in Sri Lanka, targeting churches, worship centers, government institutions, hotels, etc. And we saw the outcome of that. In the midst of all of that, I was questioning myself why people can be that hurtful, can really take those actions to impact other people. And as a result of this curiosity, I came to learn that this was not happening very far away from me, actually. It was very close to me than I ever thought. That in neighboring Nigeria, for example, there were insurgent groups that were also perpetuating some of these heinous crimes. And now we have in Togo, Burkina, and other countries in the sub-region where this happens. And so that was an inspiration for me to say, hey, it's time to get young people together. It's time to work with religious and traditional leaders to be able to address this. So in simple terms, I call myself, I work for peace in that regard. Thank you.
So much. Thank you so much for sharing that story, Isa. And what you said, curiosity started your journey as an activist. And now we have Junbert. Junbert, maybe you can talk about your advocacy and what inspired you to become an activist.
Yes, thank you, Claude. Good evening from the Philippines. Good day, everyone. My name is Junbert Pabuan. Again, to the Geneva Graduate Institute, Kofi Annan Foundation, and other partners, thank you for inviting us. It's an honor to be here. Just a quick introduction. I am a youth representative for peace and humanitarian action of the World Organization of the Scout Movement, and I'm also a medical student. And alongside these roles, I founded, as mentioned a while ago, Turning Point, a holistic development program for children in conflict with the law here in the Philippines. This program provides tailored support, including skills training, livelihood projects, and basic psychosocial interventions delivered through scouting activities. I began this initiative in 2015 as a high school student, deeply moved by what I witnessed firsthand inside local detention centers. Um, these weren't just facilities, they were prisons. They were dark and decaying. And I was able to see how the situations of the children in conflict with the law inside the social development center, where they are placed in rundown quarters, dilapidated quarters, eating meals that made you question whether they were even meant for human beings. And what struck me most was the complete absence of rehabilitation programs. There was no care, no intervention, no hope for a second chance. Um, no no programs inside the social development center. So the system was, in short, broken. In our city, the juvenile justice system mirrored the adult prisons. So both physically and metaphorically imprisoning these children's dreams. Their potential was being wasted behind bars, their hope suffocated by the conditions they were subjected to be. So as a young boy myself, I couldn't just stand by and watch this injustice unfold. I was determined to make a difference, and during that time, I remember seeing in online the fact that 100,000 children in conflict with the law are there are 100,000 children in conflict with the law across Southeast Asia. And imagine being 13. That was the youngest I was able to see in a detention center. Imagine being 13, being trapped behind bars for a petty crime. And we know that we've all felt like we've made a mistake when we were young. But imagine if that mistake cost you years of your life. And for me, this was unacceptable and really disappointing. So I know it's easy to feel hopeless during the time, but I told myself that small actions can come a long way. So with a group of my fellow scouts, I took scouting beyond the schoolyard and brought it inside the detention center. what started with a simple activity slowly revealed deeper. The more we conducted activities, the more we were able to see the problems inside the social development center. And it kind of like served as a window to see the systemic issue that is really happening inside. So from there, we evolved our approach, especially during the pandemic, when we saw the need for healthcare, vaccines for children in conflict with the law, and sustainable livelihood programs for these children in conflict with the law. And with the support of the Kofi Annan Foundation, we developed this Turning Point project to provide vocational skills and basic psychosocial support, turning the bleakness of these detention centers into places where even in the darkest corners, specks of hope could shine through. Thank
Oh,
you.
that's so inspiring. Thank you so much, Junbert. Wow, that's just an introduction, but our three panelists is already for me, I get inspired with your messages. Nisreen talked about the drive that she had, linking science and diplomacy. Isa talking about how curiosity started, how curiosity made him an activist. And now we have Junbert talking about small actions making a difference in the detention centers in the Philippines. So thank you so much for that introduction. And to continue our discussion, maybe, of course, we know it's not always easy. So maybe you can talk about what are some of the biggest challenges that you have encountered initially when you're starting as your journey as an activist, and how did you deal with these challenges? Maybe we can start with Isa, if that's okay.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So first of all, one of the biggest challenges that I faced, especially after the social media posts was made, was the reception I got from the family. I was, expecting that I was going to support that, but it really turned out that no, the family was not happy about that, and um, I came to realize why they were not happy, because most of the concerns were around my safety and around, what the response would be from the government and individuals who benefit from, the skilled system. And it's also understandable because, as a country, we came from military dictatorships and coups and all of that. And now in a democracy, people still had the fears of, violence and all of that happening. So the hostility obviously was one of the biggest challenges. But for me also, it really taught me how to be able to be okay, not understood, right? Because at the point I try to explain myself, try to highlight the need for somebody to speak up, because when these things happen, somebody has to take charge and say that this is not right. We need to do something about it. So it really taught me to be okay, not to be understood by even my close people. The other challenge, obviously, that I faced was that there wasn't the opportunity of support. Because if, for example, your family, they don't still understand your advocacy and the activism and what you are seeking to do. Outside, it's even worse. You don't have spaces where you can go in, get the mental, psychological support, confide in, and be inspired. Obviously, today is no longer the case, because for being a Kofi Annan change maker, in the means that you have that opportunity to share with other young people and learn from them. But that was a challenge that I faced starting as well. The other challenge that I faced was the fact that as an activist, I was doing it without really understanding some of the consequences of my actions. You just you have that energy that you want to do something positive, but you don't really know that it's really very powerful. You don't really know that their voice is really that strong. So you just think that you are saying something, or you are standing up, or you're protesting, but it's really sending a very strong message. I'm saying this because you might be listening to us or watching this particular session, and you are wondering, what can I do? This situation is too big. I cannot even start. I can tell you, you're so powerful, and I said it somewhere that in certain jurisdictions, a social media post can land you in jail. Why? Because social media post is powerful. If it wasn't powerful and effective, why would they land you in jail for just social media post? It means that there's power in what we do. And so I really didn't know that I had that power. But obviously, now we know that we have to speak up when it's necessary. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Isa. Isa, what a powerful message talking about your challenge. Maybe have maybe Nisreen, any challenges you have encountered and how did you deal with those?
Yeah, I think there are many challenges. One, when you start your activism in a country like Sudan, then you cannot really focus on one area because there's a massive need in all of the areas. But also, I think this massive need in all of the areas made other people, especially the international organizations or the international community and the donors and stuff, put prioritizing issues for you without really asking the community, what do you think should come first? As a climate activist, I was always faced by, no, I think you have a more of a democracy issue. You have war here, so we need to talk about peace building. And for me, they were not disconnected. Climate change is a conflict trigger, it's a conflict multiplier, but also it impacts the people who are vulnerable for conflict in the first place. Also, if you don't have a good governance, then you can never have a climate governance. And the issues are not really disconnected if you are really living the situation. But when we have a foreign understanding and a foreign perception for the issues, then it will be really hard to find a meaningful solution, because basically it's not the solutions that are developed by the community. So I think this was a bigger part of the challenges I faced. And the other issue was also being Sudanese, because whenever I wanted to communicate with the international community or go to conferences or anything, getting visas was extremely hard, and getting support and funding for going to places was even harder. And it wasn't different for also on-ground action. So as young people, we are always told to stay and remain in the shadows of the big organizations or the older activists who have more reputation, because we still don't know enough, because we still don't have enough capacity, because for example, our financial resources or skills are not enough for doing big projects by ourselves and so on. And I think all of these are just excuses, and because all of these are not problems, not stopping doing action, it's just challenges, and very easy to overcome challenges by capacity building, by training, by having a mutual trust building processes, and of course like a grassroots consultation to see the community's priorities and what they really think they need at this moment. I think this was mainly the biggest issues when I started activism, of course, plus the idea that the climate change as a topic was not something in our curriculum, not in university, not even in high school or primary school. So it was really hard to find documents and data about it, and especially that English is not my first language. Also finding information about climate change in Arabic or other languages, local languages in Sudan, was also extremely difficult. So there's a lot of actually challenges, but I think the new generations of climate activists are considering these things and trying to address it more carefully. And in these 10 years or 12 years, actually, a huge progress have been made, and I'm happy that the new activists have not doesn't have to at least suffer everything we've been through.
So much for sharing those, Nisreen. And I actually earlier you've shared how you're wearing several hats because some of your companions weren't able to go because of the visa. So how it's a reality that you're the one you shared earlier. So thank you, Nisreen. How about you, Junbert? Any challenges that you have encountered?
Yes, on my end, when I was starting doing a small scale project in my own community, I think one of the biggest challenges is at the beginning was sustainability, specifically funding. As a youth, as a young high school student during that time, just starting out a community project, I was really, really idealistic about it. So I believe that during the time, our scouting skills and enthusiasm alone would be enough to sustain the program. But as the project grew bigger and bigger, I realized that the complexities we were dealing with required more than just passion. And we needed something that would be sustainable, that would last even after we leave the detention centers. So initially, I hadn't thought much about grants or funding opportunities, but soon I learned the importance of building relationships and capitalizing on connections. I've reached out to people and organizations, many of whom offered their services for free during the time, which I'm very thankful for during the early stage of my project. During the pandemic, we introduced livelihood programs, allowing the children to create products that we sold through local showrooms. This also helped us in the sustainability of the project in a way that the income was split between supporting the program, the children, and also the center itself. I think conducting programs in detention centers or rehabilitation centers, one challenge is also the nature of the children's cases. Some would join the program later than others. Some would be referred to another center. Some would leave early without finishing the program. So it was really a challenge between, making an effective program that would fit the needs of every child, without compromising also on, the length of their stay. So I think to address this, we created an individualized modules tailored on each child's needs. So later on, we kind of like reinvented the program in a way that each children would have an individualized experience in the skills training or even in the basic psychosocial support that we provide. And I think though this is a very labor intensive um, thing to do because we need to really pattern every activity to a child's needs. It allowed each child to maximize the opportunities. And I think by doing this, we made sure that no one or no children is being left behind in our program.
Thank you so much, Junbert. You've shared challenges in funding, wherein you reach out to different organizations as well as the pandemic. You were able to overcome pandemic through your program, so that's really inspiring. Yes, I think just to remind the participants, you may also use the Q&A box. As we do the moderated panel discussion, we'll also take your questions later on after the moderated panel discussion. So please feel free to ask questions in the chat box and we'll read those out for you later. Okay, thank you so much for that, panelists. And now, after talking about challenges, maybe you can also talk about the success of a success story among your projects, among your advocacies that you think has made a significant impact in your community. Because I believe some participants are also contestants of the Geneva Challenge. So maybe you could also share what could be success story from one of your projects or advocacies. Maybe we can start with Junbert for this.
Sure. Yes. So I'm happy to share two success stories. Two boys who went from being lawbreakers into peacemakers. So let's just call them Bert and Ernie for confidentiality purposes. Well, Bert was this young boy detained with because of minor theft. And while Ernie was involved in a family-related drug case, well, Bert was a very eager learner. I remember very, very curious young boy, um, really asking questions when we are doing activities, and he would really join our activities um, eagerly, while Ernie kind of like excelled in practical skills, particularly in the craftsmanship. So during our activities, both of them stood out, and we integrated competitions also during our programs. We give certificates, we give prizes, we give medals to these children to give them this positive reinforcement. So we didn't know that Bert collected all his certificates. And when his case went to trial, he presented them to the court as a proof of his rehabilitation. And his dedication paid off. he was released and allowed to complete community service back to his hometown with the certificates that he was able to show to the court. And Ernie, on the other hand, found his calling on our livelihood programs. So I remember Ernie very eager in doing beads, bracelets, for livelihood, and he was so skilled and invested in it that upon his release, he volunteered to return and teach new children the craft he had mastered. So he would volunteer to our program when we visit different rehabilitation centers and detention centers in my province. He would join and he would also teach as a way of giving back to not only to the organization who helped him, but also to the children, to serve, to let other children see him as, as a role model and as an opportunity also that second chances do exist as long as we give them right, we put them in right conditions and we support these children. So I think these stories, though just two among many, many, many stories, remind us of the power of hope and and the power of second chances. When we believe in these children, I think they also start believing in themselves. And when they believe in themselves, so much potentials are manifested and brought into this world.
So much, Junbert. Wow, you're really, really changing lives, making change through your project. So thank you so much, Junbert. Maybe we can have Nisreen talking about a success story that you may have as well.
Sure. So because I'm now in the General Assembly in New York, I will share a related story. So my first visit to New York was actually in 2017. I was participating at the ECOSOC Youth Forum, and I was the only young people from Sudan, and we were very few Africans. So I felt really alone and not represented enough. And then I started talking with the other young people who actually made it to the ECOSOC Youth Forum, and I learned that there is a program called UN Youth Delegate Program. So I started communicating with the UN and to ask about the program and how can we start a program like that and so on. And unfortunately, all of my tries to start a program for Sudan failed in 2017 and 2018. But luckily, in 2019, the dictatorship fell, and we had a change in government, and there was a lot of appetite to include young people in the processes. So yeah, basically, we started again talking about the project, and luckily we got an approval for the project early 2020, and we were so excited to send the first delegation to the General Assembly. But then a few months later, COVID happened. So we had to stop the project that year. But later on in 2021, again, we started the project. And just 2 days before the deadline for the call for applications to become a UN Youth Delegate for Sudan, a coup happened in Sudan, and unfortunately they also cut the internet for like a month. It was a lot of mess, and a lot of people didn't know what would happen after the coup. So again, the project was paused, but luckily, finally, we managed to continue the project in 2022. And by the end of the year, the project was so successful to the point that we managed to bring 10 delegation to the General Assembly in New York. And also we gave a voice to the people because we were only represented by the coup d'etat army government, not the actual civilian government that we wanted. But also the amazing results made the project grow bigger, and we got funding to extend the project for 6 other African countries. So now we have, instead of only Sudan UN Youth Delegate Program, we have an African UN Youth Delegate Program functioning in 7 African countries already, and this is the 3rd year where we actually send delegation from different countries. So I think this is one of the success story that took so long from 2017, and yeah, I'm very proud of all of the young fellows and the young delegates, and they're doing amazing, reflecting the true sound of people and in these corridors.
Thank you, Nisreen. Wow, your drive is really powerful. Like you've overcome dictatorship, pandemic, coup d'etat, and now you're reaching to other countries, even beyond your country. So congratulations for that, Miss Reen. Now we have Isa, success story in your community.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I'm really, really inspired by the successes of the previous speakers. So, my success story would be the inspiration that other young people have had, and the fact that now we see a lot of other young people coming into the field and being inspired to take positive action. Um, Through the Kofi Annan Foundation, um, our organization is implementing something we call the Youth Interreligious Parliament Initiative. And this Youth Interreligious Parliament initiatives brings together young people from 10 different communities to come together to learn, to dialogue, and to make recommendations. So for me, the success of this is trying to turn the whole change of the status quo from where only people in power make recommendations to young people, but now young people have the platform, they can also make recommendations to people in power. And they are able to do that in a secure manner, they are able to do that in a safe way, and they're able to do that in a unified manner. And for me, that is incredible. The second thing I would say is a success for me and my community is the fact that now there is growing awareness of social activism and acceptance of social activism. So the challenges that I encountered at the beginning are no longer the same. Obviously, there are several other structural and systematic problems and challenges, but the perception and awareness has really improved. And it is as a result of our continuous efforts to continue to engage with different stakeholders to bring people together to say that actually we are doing this because we are together and not because we hate the society. So that has also really inspired that change. The other significant change and success I see is that at one of our peace camps, we have something we call the Ghana Peace Camp, and it happens every year in Ghana. In one of these camps, a young woman came, attended the camp, and we were having a session on forgiveness, and it was a very powerful, moving session. And this young lady shared with us her painful past, but going through the session on forgiveness and now recognizing the importance of forgiveness in on herself in order to release her own self, in order to be able to grow beyond what has happened. She made a painful decision to forgive. And for me, it's so powerful because forgiveness, I would say, it's mostly easy to say than to really practice. Because looking at your perpetrators and seeing them and saying that I forgive you, I'm letting go my rights to revenge. It's so powerful. It's so difficult at the same time. But that what happened as a result of our activism and the fact that there was that opportunity of support for her and that community that she could confide in and to be able to forgive. Finally, I would say that in the work of activism, it is also very, very difficult to really see the transformative changes as quick as we would see them. I say this because of the fact that other activists and upcoming activists might be watching us or will see this later, that this processes takes time. I'm talking about successes today. I started 5 years ago. So that might possibly be a significant factor in why and how we are able to achieve what we are able to achieve. So let's start small, let's keep going, and then we will surely get there.
Thank you so much, Isa. That's so inspiring. The challenges that you have encountered yourself at the beginning of your journey and your success story, seeing how the link and how you were able to make that success based from the challenges that you have encountered is really inspiring. So thank you so much, Isa. And yeah, actually, Isa briefly mentioned about the content. How do you continue the journey? Because of course, with all the distractions, all the challenges that you also encounter in your journey, how do you continually create momentum to pursue your cause, to pursue your advocacy, your projects? How do you create that momentum? Because we've seen, Isa mentioned he started 5 years ago. So what keeps you going? What keeps you going in doing this activism? Maybe we can start with Isa and then Nisreen and
Okay.
Gilbert.
Yes. So for me, one important thing, people who work closely with me know me. I celebrate results. Celebrate small beginnings. Celebrate what you're doing. For example, it's very common to organize the first petition that I wanted to submit at our local office. I went to a radio station. We had a session on that. People called in, give their support. We publicized this particular petition. And on the day of presenting the petition, a handful of people came, like only like 20 people came out of the fact that we were expecting hundreds of people to come because it was a serious issue. It was an issue of police brutality on a kid, right? Human rights. We expected a lot of people to come, but only 20, like 20 people came. For somebody, you may say that 20 people, no, maybe I failed in my advocacy, maybe I didn't rally people, but we celebrated that. We saw that as a turning point because people came. You celebrate the small beginnings. That is a way you can be able to continue to have the energy to keep going. So it's very important. The second important thing is that you need to recognize that you may not be able to achieve what you want in totality in your lifetime. this is difficult to accept, but that's the reality. As an activist, you need to recognize that you may not be able to achieve the equality that you want in your lifetime. You may not be able to see that systematic change in your lifetime. Why do you have to accept that? When you accept that, it changes the way you approach issues. You need to advocate, you need to speak up, you need to show up, but you also have to be mindful of the fact that there are different actors in the field, and you must be willing to accept the realities on the field as well. That way you have the reality check and you know what you are planning to achieve and what is achievable and what is attainable at what particular point in time. It's very important. Otherwise, you put your efforts towards something and you get drained out, and then you say, okay, I'm giving up. This is not for me. So it's important to have that reality check. The third one, I would like to say the fact that you're doing something good doesn't mean everybody is going to support you. Like sometimes I get that a lot. You want to bring, good healthcare. You want to advocate for democracy. You want to advocate for good governance. You want to bring people out of suffering. Look, that is amazing, but not everybody is going to agree with you because I can tell you there are people profiting from the current system. You see the way things are. There are people who are struggling to maintain the status quo that you are trying to change. They are not going to let you do that so easily. So accept it when people confront you. Accept it when people object to what you say. Accept it when people say, no, we're not ready to listen to you. And just find innovative ways of engaging. Find who is willing to listen. Where are the entry points? How can I be able to really put this together? And finally, I know my other colleagues have a lot to share. Finally, you always have to adapt. The local context is very important. For example, you are the UN General Assembly. There's a particular issue that has been raised, maybe climate change, maybe mental health, maybe education, maybe any important topic. You have to adapt that. Otherwise, it's going to fail in your community. You might come to your local community and they ask you what is climate change in our tribe, and you may not be able to find any nomenclature to represent climate change. You have to adapt it. What does it mean? Can climate change mean for them that their crops are no longer getting enough rainfall? Can climate change mean for them that because of climate change, their crops are dying because there's so much of heat and sun? You have to adapt your advocacy. Your activism must be local. You must know your audience and target your activism. Thank you.
Thanks, Isa. Wow, that's a lot of recommendations. It's really great. Nisreen, anything you want to add?
Well, I also get this question a lot, maybe in other format, which is basically what gives you hope to continue doing what you are doing. And I think this is a good question, but only if you really know the context, because what I'm coming from and where most of the young activists I know, maybe in this call also come from, we don't really have the privilege of losing hope. And we don't really have the power to stop. We have to keep going, and this is what we are actually doing. We try to do everything we can right now because we can. So next community, next generations and other communities will not have to suffer the same. And I think also what keeps me going now is in a very personal level is my 2 years old son. I really hope that he have a better future than the ones we had, and also less pressure from what we inherited from the previous generation, because most of the problems that we're talking about right now didn't really happen in our time. It happened before. So I hope I'm not also turning myself to that generation where other people blame. It's like, oh, the previous generation didn't do this and didn't do that. My last advice for everyone would be nothing you can do is small. That's number one. And also, while doing everything for your community and for the issue and the cause that you're working on, remember to do some things for yourself, because maintaining yourself means maintaining your activism and the work you're doing for the communities. So also take time to rest, eat well, sleep well, because we are humans at the end, we're not machines. Even machines broke sometimes if they have overload. And I think last but not least, try to organize with others in your community, because we have a very old African say, if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, we go together. And I think in the time we are living in, we need to go both fast and far. So build your own capacity so you are ready and prepared to go fast, and also mobilize people around you so you are again ready to go far. Thank you.
Thank Jean. The statement you said that we don't have the privilege to stop right now or to give up is something is also close to my heart. And I think most of the activists also joining us today. So thank you for that. And I think that's also related to one of the questions that we got from the Q&A. So do you prevent or deal with activism burnout? So what keeps us going? What prevents you from having that activism burnout? So now we have Junbert. Maybe anything you would like to share?
Yes, thank you, Claude. I think Miss Reen and Isa had already laid out some amazing reasons of why we as activists should continue, and different personal reasons. And I'm really inspired, and I really agree on it. I think it just to offer a different perspective. Well, for me, in terms of community project or organizing a community project, I think one thing I have learned to continue the momentum of what I do is to have good partnerships and collaboration. I think Ms. Reen has mentioned, the importance of having people with us in the causes that we believe in and the advocacy that we do. I've learned that we should actively engage in both public and private sectors, which help us fill the gaps in our programs. These partnerships widen our reach, invite, the spread the message by, I was able to reach more people because some stakeholders would usually invite us into their events to share our message, and kind of like allowed us also to to present our work to new audiences. And we also tap into networks like, for example, in my case, in scouting, the Messengers of Peace framework, which is very important in widening our reach and our sharing what we do into grassroots scouts who are also interested in peace building efforts. And I think also, just to add, one key to maintaining momentum is diversification. We work in we make sure that we tap into local, national, regional, and global organizations to create a web of support that not only sustains our initiatives but also amplifies our message. One success story I think that I would like to also share is, I think I'm very happy that other scouts or other groups are also conducting programs in different areas in the Philippines, because of the message that we were able to impact to them. They also create their own projects in rehabilitation centers, and that's just inspiring to know that like that we were able to inspire some groups in what we do, in simple things that we do in the community. And while we can't reach every center in the Philippines, knowing that others are taking up the cause is a proof that the message is spreading and somehow our efforts are effective.
Okay, thank you so much, Junbert. And actually, this is the last question for this moderated discussion. And I see some questions from the audience coming in. So please keep them coming. And then for the last question for this moderated discussion, what's next for you and your organizations? What are your long-term goals as an activist? Maybe we can start with Nasreen and then Isa and Junbert.
I'm not sure I understood your question well. Could you please repeat it?
Sure, no problem. So what's next for you and your organization? Any long-term goal that you may have that you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, I think I understood it, but my brain was like, no, no, she didn't ask about that.
It must be the time difference.
No, no, no. I think also the size of the answer. Yeah, so currently my activism is working on three different levels. One is, of course, achieving peace in Sudan and also humanitarian support to the war. As you might know, currently we are more than 530 days of war in Sudan, and it is the biggest humanitarian crisis in the world with over 12 million refugees and IDPs. Also, unfortunately, we have a lot of cases of rape because rape is used as a systematic weapon in Sudan. Also, unfortunately, we are having the worst floods in 150 years. So a country in size of Germany is now under the water, and it's normally the refugees camps. So it's even double problem, causing cholera and dengue fever and a lot of environmental crisis. So this is one track, and of course, all of this is just some symptoms of the war. So stopping the war is, of course, the highest goal. The other track is the youth participation in climate change field, but also in peace talks in Sudan and other things. So youth empowerment have been always big part of my activism. The third part is I am building a network, and it's basically targeting young climate activists in conflict affected countries, because unfortunately when there is conflict, then climate change drops out of the agenda and climate activists don't have any kind of protection. But also communities need to adapt to climate change even if there is war, because climate change will not say, oh wait, they have war, so I will not hit. It will hit, and people who were vulnerable to the conflict will be double vulnerable due to the conflict and climate impacts together, like what happened in Sudan and what's happening in many other countries. So yeah, working on this country that will be functioning in 25 countries, and until now we mapped over 200 youth-led organizations in these countries, and looking for more and looking for reaching all of them soon.
Thank you so much, Nasreen. You're really committed in addressing the climate change, diplomacy issues, the war in Sudan. So that's very inspiring, Nasreen. How about you, Isa? Long-term goals for your organization, your advocacy?
Yes, so it's really interesting. I think Sister Nasreen really said something of privilege. Sometimes even goal setting is one of those things because you don't really know which path it takes. The funding for your next project is not secured. Your next budget, you are not too sure whether that is going to go through or not. So it really makes planning difficult. But as a person, where I see myself going into the future is that I want to be somebody who is committed to advancing both locally and nationally, as well as at the international level, discussions around freedom of religion and belief. Because for me, I think it's central to addressing some of the religious-based conflicts, like people hating each other because of religion or ethnicity, tribes, and those things. I think having understanding of freedom of religion and belief is so important. I really see myself, an organization, really raising that at a very high level. Currently, we are doing that through the Ghana Interfaith Solidarity March and through our regular programming, including the Youth Interreligious Parliament Initiative. Um, I also really believe that the youth peace and security agenda, it's an area that really is gaining momentum. And as somebody who has been at the forefront in Ghana advocating for the youth peace and security agenda, it's something that we have to continue. It's something that we have to ensure that we keep people accountable. Because in countries like in Ghana, where there are efforts to adopt a national action plan, there might be the feeling that, okay, we are there, but we are not, because an action plan is a document. It does not do anything if it is not implemented, and it will not achieve anything if it is not well implemented. So it's something that our organization and myself will really be looking up to see how we can advocate. But in the medium term, Ghana is going to an elections. We have our parliamentary and presidential elections happening in December, on the same day, 7th of December. And so currently, the youth MPs of the Youth Intelligence Parliament are engaging their communities. We are working together with different stakeholders to put up signs of peace and engage people and try to ensure that this election is as very peaceful as possible, and to let people understand that the voting and election is just one something in a democracy. It's not everything about us, and we shouldn't break ourselves because of that. So yeah, those are some of the things that I really look forward to taking up and to scaling them up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Isa. We look forward seeing you at the forefront of advocating for youth empowerment in making plans and goals for everyone, right? Junbert, long-term goals, plans?
Yes, for my end, the next step for Turning Point Project is research and policy lobbying. I think this idea was already been brewing during the 2021 Kofi Annan Changemakers program, but since because of different priorities, we weren't really able to push it through. But currently in medical school, we're looking into how mental health and psychosocial support impacts children in conflict with the law during the diversion process. So we're kind of like trying to integrate medicine in understanding situations and understanding what are the efforts that needs to be done inside rehabilitation centers in the Philippines. Through this research, we aim to improve our program and replicate it in other rehabilitation centers, providing them with baseline data and success stories that they can be able to implement as well. We also hope to use our findings to advocate um, for policies that integrate livelihood training, mental health and psychosocial support, and even scouting as core elements of rehabilitation. And that would be part in every rehabilitation or reintegration process of children in conflict with the law. Personally, I am also exploring how medicine can serve as a bridge to rehabilitation and peace building. I want to understand the intersection of healthcare and rehabilitation and peace. Like, is access to healthcare possible as a good currency to peace building? Questions like this, and how health can be a force for peace and security. I think this is very important also in understanding the intersectionality of health and peace, which is not really explored yet. And I'm very interested in understanding this, not just for justice involved youth or children in conflict with the law, but also for the communities and the general as a whole.
Thank you so much, Junbert. It's inspiring to see how your course right now in medicine, how you link it to the journey that you've started way long ago as a high school student and high school activist um student. So yeah, actually your answer is somehow related to one of the questions from the audience. So one question that we have is, how do you think that policymakers, both nationally and internationally, in NGOs and international organizations, can better support young activists such as yourselves? So maybe anyone from the panel who would like to answer? How can NGOs and international organizations better support you as young activists?
Yep. So maybe I can go
Isa.
first. Yeah, that's okay. So first things first, we need to understand what are the needs of young people. This, to many, it's a well-researched topic, but to others, it is not, because the needs of young people are so nuanced that the needs of rural youth might be different from the needs of urban youth. The youth of educated youth might be different from the needs of uneducated youth or out of school youth. The needs, as Nisrin said, youth in Sudan would have different needs as compared to youth in Ghana because of the context and because of what is happening. So you just have to understand that. So what we continue to say in advocacy and in talking to stakeholders is that don't assume for us the hard data you have sitting in your dashboards that you can just do next review and to say, okay, the biggest priority for young people today is employment. It's not true. So which particularly category of youths are you talking about? Is it people like me, or it's people like my other friends who may not necessarily be looking for jobs, but they are looking for opportunities to access credit to be able to scale up their businesses? You know, it's important to have that distinction. So recently in 2022, I participated in the high level youth inclusive peace processes conference, which was convened by the UN. And one of the key outcomes was the public officials guide to implementing youth peace and security. I would say that stakeholders who are interested in working with young people in peace and security, please take note of that resource. It has very good content with different pathways of engaging young people. And recently, I've also seen the Canadian Coalition on Youth Peace and Security release a toolkit on beyond tokenism. Please, stakeholders should take that. And activists like you and I should also take those resources and give it to them, help them, publicize them. You know why where I work as the regional coordinator for Western Central Africa has a wide range of resources on engaging young people. We have recently released the checklist for meaningful youth participation. All these important resources, stakeholders have to do that, because without understanding the young people, their needs and their diversity, we're just going to be putting millions of dollars into things that we may not really be relevant for young people. The second and final thing before I will pause and my colleagues can come in is that we as young people have to understand that we deserve to be heard. It's not as if somebody is doing us a favor to be heard. We just have to understand that once this is about us, it is us that has to be part of this conversation. We are the major stakeholders in that conversation. So it is not only if it's not a favor that we are being made, given a seat at the table. If we are not there, the research, the data shows it's going to fail. It's not going to be sustainable, right? So we deserve a seat at the table. We just need to understand that so that we can be able to insist and demand for that. It's our right to be included. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Isa, for that. The one you mentioned, seat at the table, is something that I also relate with, because I had this like panel discussion like what we're having now, and it's like I was with a Nobel Prize laureate, and he himself gave me a seat in that panel discussion, and I think that's very powerful what you've said about us deserving having a seat at that table, because it's all about us and the future generations that we'll be having. So thank you, Isa. Nisreen, um, how do you think policymakers can help or better support the young activists?
Very quick answer because I need to go. One, include them in the design of the policy, and two, include them in the implementation of the policies, and even better, make them policymakers.
Thank you so much. That's brief and concise. Thank you so much, Nisreen. How about you, Junbert?
I agree with Ms. Reen, and I think Isa also mentioned about having a seat on the table. That's very important. Being involved and being able to recommend policies, and as what Ms. Reen also said, making them policymakers. Most of the issues, especially, for example, in terms of the law and the justice system here in the Philippines are mostly rooted because of systemic issues, and we need really policy changes, and we need proper implementation to better the service that we give to children in conflict with the lawyer, or to better the ways that we deal with with the juvenile justice system. And what better ways, than letting young people be involved in the process, and also allowing young people to be in the process of implementing new policies and recommendations.
Thank you so much, Junbert. Actually, earlier, I think the panelists also have answered the question on how they plan to expand their programs and organizations. I guess to wrap up, I guess our discussion, we have this one question from the audience. So, what is that one piece of advice that you have received during your activism journey that you live by? Yeah, so what's that one piece of advice that you have received as an activist that you still live by, you still observe, and up to this moment? Anyone?
Well, for me, I could start. Well, I one advice that was really helpful for me was, I think, from my mentor, and during my Kofi Annan Changemakers program, my mentor said that to never lose direction, to just adjust to the wind. But yeah, like a boat, when you're redirected with strong winds, sometimes you have to change course, but do not lose sight of your direction. And I think this is very important also in the things that I do, which became really helpful to understand that failures are only redirections, or there are really times sometimes that you have to redirect, you have to step back to assess the situation, but to never lose your purpose, your anchor, your goal, and why you're doing these things, and why people need your help. Um, and I think this is something that I carry. And when there are hard times, and when I'm so fed up or tired of a lot of things, I just reassess, step back, adjust if necessary, rest if necessary, and just continue with what I do, in doing good things for other people.
Thank you so much, Junbert. And I think we see that with the success stories that you have shared earlier, how you persevered and continued the journey. Thank you so much, Junbert. How about you, Isa? So, what's that one piece of advice that you have received during your activism journey that you still live by, you still observe up to this
Yeah.
moment?
The the advice is, I think it has already been shared, is to not forget yourself in the process of activism. As an individual, you have needs, and so you have to remember your needs. For example, you need to have time to sleep, you need to have enough time to rest, you need to have fun. You know, I always say that as a youth activist, you don't have to miss out on being a young person because you're an activist, right? Make time to have fun, make time to see friends, and just have fun, have fun. Yeah.
That's very important, not losing sight of yourself, not losing yourself along the way. Okay, I think there are some more questions. If that's okay with you. Actually, Nisreen had to go because she's also wearing several hats in an event in New York, so she had to go. But Junbert, Isa, is it okay? We answer this another question from the audience. I think they're very much engaged with the discussion. So the question here is, thank you so much. What recommendations do you have for effectively communicating the goals and impact of our activist program in the upcoming Geneva Challenge? So this is coming from the participants of the Geneva Challenge. So what recommendations would you have for them to effectively communicate their activism program for this challenge?
Well,
Yeah.
I can start. Yeah, sorry, Isa. Is it
Sure,
okay? Yeah,
Gilbert,
okay. Thank
you
you.
can
Thank you
start.
so much. Well, I would like to share two things. First is to remember that communication is an energy transfer. So when you believe in something, it radiates and it translates into what you say and what you get out there. So when you present or when you do or when you share, for example, your projects or your initiatives or advocacies, make sure that you're wholeheartedly believed in it. You're passionate about it, and you're happy sharing it because it will translate and audience will connect with that. Second, I think just keep it short and simple. I mean, straightforward. Make sure that it's evidence-based if possible. Provide data to support the cost that you do, and make just a simple explanation. And it doesn't have always to be grand. The goals, the impact doesn't have to be huge. It can be simple as long as you communicate it well. And I think yeah, again, it's very important to really be authentic and to have that core in sharing your advocacies, and to always believe in what you do because it will relate to people.
Thank you, Junbert. Isa?
Yes, I think that one of the things that I've really found very useful is not what I'm doing, but why I'm doing what I'm doing. So in your communication, you may want to focus on why you are doing what you're doing, and to be able to explain the why, you have to go back to what Jambet said, data, because do not assume that the other person listening to you sees things and knows things as you know them. You know your community, you know the specific issues. For example, I just want to use practical examples. If you are a climate activist, you are trying to create a sustainable solution to addressing the issue of deforestation, where we cut trees for charcoal and firewood, etc. You're trying to change that. You have to be able to communicate why you are doing that, not necessarily the product or the service you are rendering, but the idea, the inspiration behind why you are actually doing that is so important. It's always very powerful, and communicate that clearly. The second thing I would like to also indicate is that it is always good to go prepared. You know, sometimes it's funny when you say this, but the reality is that we are communicating to different audience. You can be an activist of 20 years, but have a pitch and not be able to deliver because maybe you didn't understand that you needed to adapt your talking points and your way of presentation to match that particular audience. So to be prepared for this particular Geneva challenge, and first of all, let me say it's amazing. Last year, I was there at the challenge, and I really enjoyed the session. To go there and make a good presentation, you need to understand who is going to be in the room and what are their interests and what can you say to be able to get their attention. It's so important. That is just about targeting and tailoring our communication. So it's important to go prepared, understand who's in the room, the dynamics, the interests, and how to get your comment, your communications done. The other thing is to make sure that you communicate more about why you're doing what you're doing and less about what you're doing. Otherwise, you tell people what you're doing, but they don't know why you're doing that, and there's no motivation to connect to that inspiration, because it's the inspiration that we get connected to that we support the initiative itself. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I actually relate to your recommendations because I myself was a Geneva Challenge contestant, and yeah, the energy transfer that Junbert was sharing, it's really important because it's and the why behind your advocacy and program is I think that will speak for the project that you are proposing. And so there. Thank you so much. I think those are our questions, and just to share with you the comments from the audience. So we received heart reactions while you were sharing, and one message here is let me just go. Wow, you are amazing, guys. From Miss Maurice Venter, and there's also one, I think. Okay, there. Thank you very much. So, we got the heart reactions while you were talking. I'm not sure if you've seen those, but yeah, I think it was a fruitful discussion for with everyone, and also Nisreen, who had to go early because of her participation in the UNGA. Okay, I think that wraps up our discussion. And now I guess maybe if I can invite everyone to open their cameras for those who are comfortable opening their cameras. Okay, we're receiving applause, reactions. If I can invite everyone to open their cameras just so we have to document this event that we're having, the discussion that we have. Maybe Clara, is that okay? We can have the photo up. Okay, I guess we can have with the panelists take the photo for just to wrap up the event. Okay, I think we have Clara. Yes, Junbert, Isa, maybe smile. We have to show our smiles for the photo. Okay, we're good. Okay, I think we're good. All right. So again, thank you so much. Thank you so much, our there's panelists, our participants for a very insightful discussion. So actually there. So we're wrapping up the discussion today. And again, it's very inspiring. I myself has been inspired by all the stories, recommendations of our panelists, and I hope everyone has the contestants who are joining the Geneva Challenge have learned so much from our panelists. And yeah, so we'll end the discussion today and hope you have a lovely rest of your day. So thank you everyone. Thank you for joining our discussion and have a great day. Thank you, Junbert.